Welcome to Open Dental Software version 21.2 New Features. We'll start by covering the highly requested features for this version. Under Setup and down to Practice, there are now two new phone number fields found in the Edit Practice Info window. The first located with the billing address. If Use on Claims is checked, the telephone number will now be sent along with the address, if used different than the physical treating address. There's also a phone number that will be sent along with the Pay To address, if your practice wants payments and questions about their bills to be sent to a different location. The next highly requested feature is part of our waiting room. The waiting room now allows you to choose how the patient's name is displayed and in which view it is displayed that way. Let's go under How to filter the views. Under Setup, Appointments, and Appointment Preferences, you can filter the waiting room based on the selected appointment view. This means that if the appointment for the patient that's checking in is not within that appointment view, that patient's name will not be displayed in the waiting room when you're under that view. Let's go ahead and customize our waiting room feature with the patient's name, and then I'll show you some examples. Under Setup, Appointments, and Appointment Views, you can add an additional view, or you can edit an existing view. I've recently created the hallway view as we have a computer in our hallway area with high patient traffic. I prefer the patients walking by not be able to see the patient's full names that are checking in currently. I'm going to double-click to edit my hallway view. Open Dental by default will show the patient's last and first name in the waiting room feature. The two new options to choose from are patient's first name, last initial, and the patient's first name being the only thing that would show in the waiting room. I prefer to show the patient's first name and last initial just in case I have more than one patient with the same first name. Clicking OK will update those changes. I'm now going to select the appointment and mark it as arrived, which is my trigger to put the patient in the waiting room. You'll notice that I'm in the All view, so my patient's last name and first name still shows. I haven't customized that view. If I go to a view without the operatories that my patient is currently scheduled in, you'll notice my patient is removed entirely. We'll go to Hygiene, and my patient's name once again shows up as their appointment is in an operatory in that view. It's not customized as I didn't customize that patient's name display for my hygiene view. And lastly, we'll go to that hallway view, and you'll notice that the patient's name gets updated to first name and last initial. The next highly requested feature is pay periods that can now be set up for semi-monthly or 2 times per month payroll cycles. This can be found under Setup, Manage, and Time Cards. Clicking on the Add Generate Many button at the bottom, choosing a start date for my pay period, and our new option of semi-monthly. I'm going to tell Open Dental to create the next 24 pay periods and generate them automatically for me. The semi-monthly settings that get turned on when you select this particular option, I'm going to set the period 1 day to 1 and the period 2 day to the 15th. The 1st and the 15th can be chosen as the end date for that payroll period or the pay date to show when the employee actually gets paid. If you select the box for last day, you'll want to change the period 1 day date to something closer to the middle of the month, as the period 2 day will automatically be set to the last day of that month. For today's example, I'm going to show you one of our more common requests, which is the 1st and 15th as the pay dates of the month. We need to indicate that the payday and how many days after the pay period has closed we pay our employees. I'm going to set mine up as 2. Choose whether or not you're excluding weekends, or if your employees work weekends, don't exclude them. For today's example, I'm going to set it up the way that we have here. We'll exclude the weekends and pay before the weekend. You can also choose to pay after the weekend if the 1st and 15th does not fall on a weekend. Generate, and you'll notice here that my pay periods are the 1st and 15th of the month. My end date on the pay period is 2 days before my pay date. For the paycheck dates that don't land on the 1st or 15th, that's because of the weekend settings that I've applied below. To show you an example, we'll go to January, and you'll notice that the 15th falls on a Saturday. I've told the system that we pay before the weekend, so Open Dental has calculated that I'll be paying them on Friday the 14th. The next highly requested feature in Open Dental is the ability to specify procedure codes to be excluded from the Incomplete Procedure Notes report. This can be found under Reports and Standard, the Setup button in the top left-hand corner, and the Miscellaneous Settings section. The very bottom of this window, I have the excluded codes for the Incomplete Procedure Notes report. I can add additional codes to this list with a simple comma and type out the procedure code. If I don't know the procedure code, I can leave the area the way it is and choose the ellipses button to pick an official ADA code. I'm going to choose a procedure code that might be the only thing on an appointment that day, but I don't want a note on that specific procedure, even if it is the only thing we completed during that visit. This will add it to codes to be excluded from this report. If you've never used the Incomplete Procedure Notes report, it's part of the standard reports in Open Dental. Under the Daily section in the center is the Incomplete Procedure Notes. This report will allow you to include procedures with no notes on any procedure for the same day, and will also let you include procedures with a note that's unsigned, if it's your practice at the clinic to sign every note. I'm going to filter mine to all of my clinics, as I have multiple locations set up in this particular scenario, and refresh my list. You'll notice I have procedure codes where they were completed today, and there's no note on any of those procedures. I'm also going to show excluded codes as well, and refresh my list. Let's set our report back just a little bit so I can include procedures that might have happened in the past. You'll notice that our excluded code gets removed and added based on whether I have that Show Excluded checkbox listed inside of this window. The very last common, highly requested feature is part of our EServices setup. If you're using our EServices or are interested in signing up for EServices, they're at the very top of the program. Clicking on the EServices button will go into the automated messaging. A highly requested feature is that the general messages, which can be activated in this window, are now available after an appointment for the patient. Clicking on the Add General Message, I can put in how many days or hours after the appointment has been set complete that my patients are sent either a text or email message. This will allow your office to be able to send communications to your patients, such as a request for a review of your practice. The other option that has been moved to automated after the appointment is your Add Patient Portal Invites. This has now been moved to automated messaging. This will allow you to send a patient portal invite a certain amount of days or hours before or after the appointment. Patient portal invites are a great way to have your patients log into their own dental portal with their own username and password to be able to see confidential communication that you want to have with your patient. The next window inside of the eService setup that's had a few more added features added to it is the eClipboard window. The eClipboard now has the ability to require patients to complete a two-factor authentication before showing sheets for the patient to fill out. We can also allow image captures for things such as the front and back of a photo ID and the front and back of an insurance card. We can also add in custom sheets that our patient's going to need to fill out when they check in for this appointment, and I can move them over to the right-hand side to customize whether or not this behavior is new, updated, or once, the frequencies, and the new feature of being able to add in the minimum and maximum ages. My patient would need to be at least 18 years old to have this form populate that they need to fill it out. You'll now also have the flexibility in eClipboard if you have a current session currently active and your patient is trying to fill out and sign for their treatment plan, to save the treatment plans and send it to the eClipboard. But now you can update the saved treatment plan and have it update on the eClipboard as well by making your changes to the saved treatment plan and then refreshing by clicking on eClipboard again. Now let's go over a couple of the requested features from different modules. We'll start in the family module. My patient, Jimmy, is going to add on a discount plan. He's currently a cash paying guest, and we'll notice that we have the fees listed for him as a patient, and he's going to be paying full price. Open Dental Now, when you add on a discount plan to the patient, will automatically update the treatment plan fees to show the discount plan amount and your patient's new fees. You no longer have to click on the Update Fees button to have Open Dental go looking for those discount planted fees. You'll also have the option under Tools and Audit Trail for a new permission that lets you see when in-house plans were added or dropped. To just look at that specific permission, click on the Permissions dropdown and choose Discount Plan, Add or Drop. Let's go to a patient who has insurance. One of the new features that can be added inside of an insurance plan is waiting periods for specific procedure codes in the Other Benefits section. To get to the Other Benefits section of an insurance plan, simply double-click into the insurance plan and double-click into the benefit information section. The Other Benefits is down at the bottom of this window. Clicking on the Add button will allow us to add in things such as waiting plans to specific procedure codes. Choosing the category of none and the specific procedure code that needs to have a waiting period. We'll choose the type of waiting period and make sure that your time period is set correctly to the patient's actual benefit year. In this case, it's calendar going from January to December, and we currently have that highlighted. If your patient's plan starts in any other month but January, and it's currently showing as a number next to your month box, that would be a service year plan. For this example, calendar year plan is correct, so I need to put in that my patient has a waiting period of 1 year. Clicking OK and clicking OK again, the very last important step in the insurance window is making sure that the insurance plan has an effective date so that Open Dental knows which calendar year to put that waiting period into. Clicking OK, I can go to the treatment plan for this patient and see that there's a waiting period on that procedure code. My insurance is not expected to cover it, and I can also see that my patient is responsible for the portion. Now let's go into our account module. In the account module, you've had the ability to see unearned income as prepayments. You can now customize your unearned pay split types. Let's go to Setup and Definitions and our Pay Split Unearned Type section. This will allow you now to differentiate what the prepayment is going to. General prepayments, ortho treatments, especially if you have multiple specialties at your practice and you want to show exactly how much of the portion should go to that type of treatment. I've already customized ortho in this system, but to add additional unearned types, you would just click the Add button and give it the description. Now let's go over how to add in a specialized unearned type. This patient owes $100 on their account. They'd also like to put a $2,000 prepayment to future general treatment that they know they're going to have. and $3,000 to future ortho treatment they're getting ready to have. Let's go ahead and take in that payment scenario. We'll click on the payment button, put in our $5,100, and click OK. Open Dental will automatically try to split out that $100 to what they owe for in the past, and it's left a prepayment of the full $5,000 for the remainder. I'm going to customize this so I know exactly how much the patient wants in the different unearned types. We'll double click into the prepayment line split, and we're going to change this to $2,000. You'll notice I've left this as prepayment for general treatment, and it's not attached to any specific provider because it hasn't been earned yet. We'll click OK, and now I need one more step to differentiate that additional $3,000 that's going to ortho prepayment. Clicking on the Add Split button, I can put in the $3,000. My unearned type I've now customized for ortho treatment, and I don't have a provider that's specifically earning it yet since they haven't done the work. So we'll set the provider to none and click OK. My $5,100 now matches the total splits down at the bottom of $5,100. At this point, I can list the type of payment. If I'm using a credit card processing system that's fully integrated with Open Dental, I can charge the card through that. If you're using a terminal outside of Open Dental and you're using this for recording purposes to show how much of a payment was taken on the patient's ledger, go ahead and click OK. You'll notice on the account, I now have that payment attached to my procedure. My unearned is $5,000, and if I hover over that unearned income, I can see where my patient would prefer their prepayments are going in the future. A new feature is now the ability to use Edge Express integration for insurance payments and recurring charges. The window that you would use Edge Express now for virtual payments from the insurance company when you're going to finalize an insurance payment in the batch or this claim only buttons, you'll now have the ability to use Edge Express as one of the options. Edge Express may be something you are already signed up to use to take your patient's payments through the portal. The other window that you can also use Edge Express for patient payments is that Edge Express patient payments no longer require a physical terminal. The card number can be stored under the Credit Card Manage button window here as one of the options with the Add New Card button. This would allow you to quickly take patient payments if they authorize you to charge a certain dollar amount to their account by leaving their credit card on file. It can also be set up for recurring payments if your patient has a payment plan that they want to automatically have it charge the balance for each month. The next new feature in our account module is under the drop-down for statements and more options. You'll have the option to show all transactions since a zero balance on the account or a negative balance or credit, the last time the patient was in good standing. You'll notice by checking this box that it grays out the area to put in a specific date range. This feature is also available in the Manage module in the Billing section. Once again, clicking on it will gray out the date range and will show all transactions since the patient was in good standing at your clinic. The next option in the Account module is the ability to fully refund a patient payment. If you right-click on a patient payment, such as this one, we can refund the full payment as an overpayment. Our patient intended on only paying us for the $100 and not that $5,000. So I need to remove the $100 from the total dollar amount that I'm refunding. You'll notice that Open Dental automatically populates that negative symbol for me. If you are refunding just a portion of the money back, you'll need to make sure that the refunded pay splits are correct as well. In this case, we're not refunding the crown, only the prepayments to our patient. So I'm going to remove the pay splits from the left-hand side. We are now refunding the $5,000 from those prepayments, but Open Dental has created the negative splits for me to where it was originally paying to. Once again, if you're using an integrated processing terminal with Open Dental, you'll still need to process that return from inside of the payment buttons that you're currently using. If your terminal is outside of Open Dental and you're using this for record purposes, we can just click OK at this time. You'll notice that Open Dental has now done a refund on the patient's account. Let's go into a different patient to cover a couple of new features that are inside of our dynamic payment plans. The dynamic payment plans in Open Dental can be useful for adding and paying for treatment over time. The dynamic payment plans are accessed by the drop-down next to the payment plan button. I'm going to go into this one for my patient that's already been set up. Treatment planned procedures display on printed dynamic payment plans now. If your office would prefer, instead of printing from this window, be able to sign and print from this window, there's a little bit of setup that needs to be done. Let's go over that really quick. Under Setup and down to Sheets, we need to move over a payment plan sheet to be able to use because we want to customize it to show a signature box now. I'm going to double click into the payment plan and add the signature box. Clicking and dragging that over where they would normally have signed it if I had printed it out on paper. The second setup step you'll need to do is under Setup and Account. Under the Payment Plan section, Payment Plans Use Sheets. Now that we have those set up, when I double click back into the dynamic payment plan, I have the option to sign and print. The new feature in this version is the ability to include procedures that are still treatment planned inside of the dynamic payment plan. If I go into the Production tab, you'll see that everything currently attached is completed. Let's treatment plan something really quick for the patient. We have that composite. I'm going to go into the dynamic payment plan and click on the Add button. We're now going to add that treatment plan procedure to the already existing dynamic payment plan. We'll unlock the payment plan so that we can change the schedule and create the new schedule. Any updates to the payment plan will also show at the bottom of the payment plan. Let's go ahead and sign and print, and you'll now notice that the treatment plan procedures are also showing in those dynamic payment plan presentations. If I need to delete a charge that's attached to a dynamic payment plan, I now have that as an option. Simply double click into the dynamic payment plan, go to the Production tab, click on a line item, and click Delete. Open Dental will adjust the total cost of the loan automatically for you when you remove production from it. I would suggest having your patient sign and print now that the treatment has changed. We're now going to go into a patient's account so that I can show you one of the features that now exists to be able to fix dynamic payment plans. When we add production to a dynamic payment plan and then create a schedule, the same way that we would for a normal payment plan, I'm going to go ahead and show that the date of agreement, the first payment, should be today. This scenario won't happen very often, but I do want to show you a nice tool that's able to fix it quickly. This treatment is not actually going to be done now, so I'm going to highlight and do an adjustment for the full percentage of the fee. You'll now notice that my dynamic payment plan up at the top has a due now of $100, but my patient no longer owes for how much the production was attached to that payment plan. When this happens, Open Dental has a report that will easily notify you that you now have too much production attached to a dynamic payment plan and will now allow you to fix it quickly. Under Reports and Standard, if I go down to the monthly section and click on Dynamic Payment Plans Overcharged, It will show me the report of any patients where the patient portion, the patient plan outside of the payment plan, if they over things that are not part of the agreement, the patient's portion on the plan, and how much is currently being charged out to the patient because of the original setup for the dynamic payment plan. In this case, my patient doesn't owe anything, so they've been overcharged the $100 because I've written off all the production that was originally attached. I now have a quick button to be able to fix accounts like these. Clicking on the line item and clicking on Fix, Open Dental will tell me that the selected overcharged production will have an offsetting debit created. I'm going to say yes because I want Open Dental to help me fix it. If I refresh my account module, you'll now see that I have an offsetting overcharge to show that my patient is no longer due for that portion of the payment plan because the production had been written off. The other feature inside of dynamic payment plans is the auto split system will explicitly apply splits as interest or principal when they're attached to a dynamic payment plan. Let's go back into the last patient to show you this. We're going to create the dynamic payment plan and have some of that money due today. When I go to take a payment and my patient owes the $50, Open Dental will automatically try to split it to the principal, and if I was charging my patient interest, would try to automatically apply it to the interest as well. The next set of features are inside the chart module. Let's go ahead and head there. Procedure codes with quad or arch as a treatment area. Under List, Procedure Codes, we'll go into an example of SRPs. So quads and arches will now have the ability for a checkbox for the tooth range. This is useful for codes that have multiple treatment areas. Both can be sent on the claim now. This checkbox is only available when the treatment area is set to quad or arch. Anything else will gray out that availability. Let's go ahead and show you as an example. Inside of our quads, we now also have the ability to select the tooth range too. The next feature that's new inside of this module is the Ortho Chart. You now have the ability to add in multiple rows for a specific day, even if they're different providers. The setup steps for this to start with is under Setup, adding in a provider field, and making sure to double click into the provider line and associate it to a provider type if you want it to be able to be viewed on the row. My patient came in for their visit today. Our provider can add the row. He's currently logged into the system, so it puts him as the provider, and he can make choices and notes as needed. Clicking OK, that patient later needed to come back in the same day for possibly some pain they were having or to loosen some of the wires. Our providers would now be able to go into the Ortho Chart, click on Add a New Row, choose the date, and choose which provider has seen that patient, even if it's changed because their previous provider was unavailable. This will now log which provider was the one making the adjustments and notes to that row. Some miscellaneous fields that have now been added as new features to Open Dental include things such as sales tax. We'll go into the treatment plan module for the patient, and you'll notice that we have a tax estimated column. Certain procedure codes can be set up for automatic sales tax. These would be under Lists, Procedure Codes, and going into the specific procedure code. I'll go into our whitening kit, checking the box for auto tax if it's a procedure that needs to be taxed. We'll go ahead and treatment plan this for our patient. You can now see in the treatment plan module for our patient that we have the tax indicated in the tax estimated column, and it's added to our patient portion. If your system does not currently have the tax estimate displayed, under Setup and Display Fields and Treatment Plan, it will typically start by default in the available fields. If you haven't customized the way your treatment plan module is displayed, OpenDental will list any tax estimates inside of the description line. The next feature that was added to OpenDental is under our Report section and Standard. The Active Patients report in the Reports lists now has the ability to filter the patient status. If I want to be able to set my date range to be able to see how many patients that I've marked as archived within that year, I can do that now. The next new feature is the ability under Lists and Insurance Carrier to search by electronic ID for that carrier. This is very helpful for those of our Canadian customers that use OpenDental. The next features can be found under the referrals for our patients. If I go to Lists and down to Referrals, we can now put in a business name for the referral. To edit an existing referral, simply double-click. We can put in the business name to quickly differentiate instead of having to look for a specific provider to be able to look for a practice name. We can also indicate display notes for things that we might want to make sure we're also letting our patients know if the clinic is possibly only open on certain days. If I attach that referral to a patient, under the Family section or the Chart module, I can double-click, refer out to a specific provider, and when I click OK and add that to my patient, that display note will also show in the Family module. The next feature in this version is under Lists, Procedure Codes, and the Fee Scheds button in the bottom right-hand corner. If your office has had a conversion from a different software into OpenDental, you're probably familiar with being able to see multiple fee schedules that carried over with it. By default, OpenDental will no longer show those hidden fee schedules. You still will have the option to check the Show Hidden box if you want to be able to see those hidden fee schedules from the past. The next update to our features is in the Fee Tools window. In the Fee Tools section, you'll now be able to do global updates based on clinics, and the Update Fees buttons have changed. The first button will update procedure fees only. This will not update insurance estimates in the treatment plans, but it will update the procedure fees. The Update Estimates Only button is only for offices that run reports after updating fee schedules and before selecting their patient. This button recalculates treatment plan estimates, write-offs, ortho cases, and discount plan amounts. In the past, it did not update the discount plan amounts, and it will also do that now. The Update Procedure Fees button can typically take a very short amount of time. The Update Estimates Only button can run for quite a while, especially if you're a large practice. So we'd recommend running either one of these buttons when you're not seeing patients and typically after hours. A couple of new features for our multiple location customers. The Update Global Fees can now be run for specific clinics is one of the features that's been added. And you can also, under Lists and Clinics, double-click into each clinic and associate a default billing type. If one clinic, most of the patients prefer standard accounts, but another clinic is mostly patients who prefer email statements, you can set up each clinic to be specific. You can still choose the billing type for the patient in the individual patient accounts, but this will choose the default billing type that they're set to from the beginning. You can also choose under your clinics to always assign benefits to the patient. If your clinic is mostly out of network or all out of network and cash paying patients, this will assign on each of those insurance plans to pay the patient instead of the practice, so you can collect the full fee up front. The other feature inside of the clinic's window is when you go to mark a clinic as hidden, OpenDental will tell you how many patients are attached to this clinic and that it cannot be hidden until they're removed. This is a helpful feature for offices that might be closing one location. We can quickly select the clinic and the patient count, which clinic we're moving that patient to, and click on the Move button. We will now be able to go in and hide that clinic. Sheets will now allow a static image. Let's go over how to add a static image that's different based on the clinic the patient is at. Let's go to Setup and Sheets, and we'll start by needing to import an image onto the sheet. Let's go ahead and customize our letter for the patients. I'm going to click on the Static Image button, and I'm going to go ahead and import an image. This will be our default image for the clinics that don't have their own image. Now that we have that image on one of our sheets, I'm going to go ahead and find our OpenDent Images folder on our server computer. This can be found under your server's name and the OpenDent Images folder. Scrolling down to Sheet Images. To create different images for separate clinics, we'll need to know the clinic ID number. This can be found under Lists and Clinics. Double-click into the clinic and look at the clinic ID. This clinic is 1 and this clinic is 2. We'll now need to create subfolders for each of those clinics by right-clicking, New, and Folder. Now we need to find the image that we want that's going to be different for our clinic too. I'm going to go ahead and find the picture and go ahead and copy it over. We'll paste it inside of the folder that we want for that clinic, and we do need to make sure that the names are exactly the same as our default image. So I'm going to right-click and rename so that I can copy that name and go into our folder and paste. Our names now match. I'm going to choose the specific clinic to show you what this does. Under the Letters button, I can now choose my letter, click OK, and OpenDental's using my default as this is for Clinic 1. If I change clinics to show you what it would look like if my patient goes to Clinic 2, I can still create that same letter for my patient, but now the logo is specific to that clinic. The last feature available that's new for multiple locations is the Windows service to monitor replication slave statuses. Please see the OpenDental replication service for additional details on our web manual. Thank you so much for joining us today.